So cool, man. Sean, great to meet you again. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm looking forward to getting into Don't Stop Now, but before we do that, I know we're going on the 5 year anniversary of this pandemic, and it did so much to music and the musicians that were playing it. How much of living through that time period has reverberated and been a part of your professional and even your personal life up to this point?
It's it's weird because sometimes I forget that that even happened, and then you look back and like, man, that was bizarre. And
Yeah.
but at the other, it's in the other way. It's I never take for granted being able to get together and play music in the same room, especially with a 17-piece big band, which is my passion, and I just never take it for granted now.
So speaking of the big band, with the new London big band, Don't Stop Now is the latest album. Talk to me about the kind of how the thought came about for this album and the artistic vision that ultimately went into it.
So, when I discovered this music was out there, this is music that was written by Thad Jones, and he wrote this for Harry James. And I discovered this music was out there, and I was so excited because these were two musicians that I never knew really cross paths in this way. Um, and so I wanted to bring this music to life because a lot of these tunes, most of them had never been recorded before, and all of them not in their entirety. And so I wanted to kind of bring them to life. Uh, and so he wrote this in 1963 and 1964 for the Harry James Orchestra, and he wrote this, of course, with a lot of trumpet solos for Harry James. And so I wanted to bring in who I thought would just be the absolute perfect match for the role of Harry James, which is Wayne Bergeron. So I got in touch with him, and he was excited to take on that role. And so we recorded these 8 tunes that he wrote for Harry James. We kind of brought them to life, kind of studied the style and what we thought his band would play it, while also keeping true to the voice of Thad Jones, and kind of keeping both of their musical styles in the way that they intersected. Um, and so, in addition to that, recorded a few of my tunes because I wanted to. We got 3 of my tunes in there as well.
Yeah. So what are you hoping a listener gets from this album? What's your ultimate hope?
Well, it's a real swinging album. I mean, it's music of the 60s, the jazz, which I think a lot of people's minds is like, iconic jazz comes from that 60s sound. And it's big band, and it's what I find fascinating is um the these 2 musicians. You think of Harry James, and you think of the big band era, 1940s, sort of like classic swing. And you think of Thad Jones, and you think of this like cutting edge swing of the his orchestra started in 1965. Um, that you get this uh, 2 different worlds coming together, and I love how Harry James was a big fan of Count Basie, and so he brought in several of Count Basie's writers, including Thad Jones, to write for his band. And so you're going to hear the voice of Thad Jones through the voice of Harry James. And so it's a really exciting sound. It's really swinging and bluesy and of its time in the 60s. But you're going to hear it come to life in a modern band and our voice as well. And so it's a really exciting combination of artists coming through here.
Yeah, whenever I think of Thad Jones, I see the name in lights with Mel Lewis Tuesdays at the Village Vanguard. That's always what kind of pops out, you know?
hmm He so he wrote two of his iconic tunes, Tiptoe and 3 and 1. Uh Studying for like jazz musicians going through college, they all study these tunes that were recorded by the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra. But we have these versions that he wrote for Harry James, which actually predate those famous versions that people know by a few years. And so you can hear it through the voice of Thad Jones. It's his composition, his arrangement, but in sort of a like a prototype or a experimental type, also through the voice of Harry James. And so it's really exciting to hear these like fresh arrangements. People are amazed whenever they find out, wow, you have this version of Thad of a 3-in-1 and Tiptoe, totally new,
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, how did this kid from Dallas, Texas grow into being a jazz musician, being enamored with the big bands, getting into the Coast Guard and being in Connecticut? How did we get from here to here?
Well, started like most many musicians, I guess, playing in the school band,
Yep.
uh, picking trombone because it's the one that goes meow, makes funny sounds, and but playing in the school jazz band, the big band, that sound, there's nothing like that sound, and it always just got to me. Um, and so over the years, pursued a career in music, and I got a job playing in the Coast Guard band, which is active duty military. It's a 55-piece concert band. Um, and all along, I had this vision of having my own big band, that would capture that sound. There's something about hearing a big band live that you get the sound of all these horns, and all these instruments hitting you at the same time, in synchrony and the power of it. And I just thought it was like an addictive sound. I just couldn't get enough of it. And so uh, I moved to Connecticut to join the Coast Guard. And on that, uh, on my free time outside of the job, I put together this big band. We play once a month downtown New London, Connecticut. Um, that I wanted to recreate that sound. I had this vision of what I wanted the sound to be like, and so that was the realization of that vision.
So, talk to me about the first live jazz show that you saw that really blew you away, that made you think, I'd love to be on that stage one day.
Well, I back up even before that. I My first CD was in, I don't remember, middle school. Um, I went to the CD store, which you did back in those days. And I think it was like Blockbuster Music or something. And I just said, "Hey, I want some jazz," not knowing where to start. And he's like, "Oh, let me go get the jazz guy." And the jazz guy came over and he gave me this John Coltrane CD, Blue Train.
Wow.
And I took that home and I listened to it every day for a year, just the whole beginning to end. And at first, I didn't quite get it. And I just kept listening to it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then someone told me, they're improvising those solos. They're not written down. And I didn't even realize that at first. And I was like, they're making that up. When do they go? And I just thought it was the most exciting sound, just so spontaneous once I figured it out, but just such an exciting sound. And so ever since then, I always trace I guess, my origins between school band and then John Coltrane.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, got me going.
So how over the years have you incubated and grown into this love of the music and jazz? What gets you up every day? What's the best part of being a professional musician for you?
Um, there's performing. You can play by yourself in a room with nobody around, and you can make music, and there's absolutely value to that. Um, but you get together with other musicians. And in my case, I get as many as I can because I love the sound of a big band. And you get an energy that comes from playing with other musicians, the sound coming together. You connect in a certain way, um, beyond your own self, create something larger that's so exciting, and then to be able to share that with audiences. Um, and I love, sometimes jazz can be intimidating to people that don't know jazz well. And I always want to bring a certain kind of jazz that's very approachable. And it's not that we're gonna simplify it in any way, but it's kind of the way you present it, that it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to um, uh, basically present it in a way that can bring everybody in. And so when this band, the new one, the big band plays, I think we bring in everybody. We bring in young people and old people and just people from different backgrounds, people that have never heard jazz before. And I want to bring everybody in and make it approachable and enjoyable. And so when we get that many people in the band and that many people in the audience all kind of experiencing the same musical excitement, I mean, I think that's the real thrill.
Yeah. You mentioned young and old musicians. What over the years have you learned from the legends, luminaries, the veterans of this music that you in turn have processed and try to teach the younger generations? Because jazz is that spirit of lending to the younger generations. What is that for you that you try to give them?
Definitely. It's about as a younger musician, you study recordings on how to play the music. Um, but and on the other hand, there's no replacement for hearing it in real life. Um, so just watching the pros over the years, watching the way that they interact with other musicians on stage and watching the way they interact with the audience, that's something you just have to experience in person. And then studying in person, taking lessons and going to music school, and uh, getting that one-on-one experience is really important. Um, Teaching you how to navigate which is a very complicated musical style, uh, and being able to pass that down to the younger generation. So whenever I teach now, I don't. I want to give away all my secrets. This is everything I know about this thing. Go try it. It's about helping each other and passing down that lineage and that uh, the oral history of it all.
You know, the trombone to me is always seems like one of the more mysterious brass instruments in the world. It's one of the very few that doesn't have like hard stops, keys and things that say this is where this stops. You can go and you can do parsecs and parsecs of different in and out and undulation with it. But from a player standpoint, that's just me as a spectator, but as a player, what is the best thing that you've learned and grabbed onto in your evolution of playing this instrument?
Um, yeah, it is having a slide. There's, that it doesn't stop. It just that you can get way in between notes. And something that uh you as trombonists we always strive for is trying to keep up with the other instruments, trying to keep up with trumpets and saxophones. That a trombonist, it generally speaking, except for the big stars, are not going to play as fast or as many notes as like a piano or a saxophone. So I think it forces as a trombonist to be more careful and more melodic about what you play, and you have to use other sorts of devices. You can't go for the full 16th note velocity uh, sheets of sound or like John Coltrane. It just generally doesn't translate to the trombone. So you find other ways to create musical excitement, more melodic, more rhythmic, and so it's a limitation that brings about its own creativity that I think in the end is a good thing, and it's a good thing that everybody doesn't play the same way too, and that different instruments have different ways of bringing about their melodies and their ideas. And it's also informed me as a composer. It's I think some of the best jazz composers are trombonists, maybe because are limits to the instrument, like Sammy Nestico or Nelson Riddle, that uh, you're also sitting in the middle of the band. You got the saxophones in front of you and the trumpets behind you, and you're kind of experiencing all the sounds around you. So while the trombone can be a humbling instrument because of the slide and because of this difficulty, it forces the creativity to come out in different ways, which I think is a good thing.
So at the end of the day, why do you love this art form we call jazz?
I love the spontaneity of it. Improvisation, is at the heart of jazz. And what I love about big band jazz is the compositional part of it and the way that you combine improvisation with structure, and the excitement, the sound of hearing a big band it's just it gets to something. You combine complexity with sort of like a basic soulful blues feeling, and it's got the whole package.
So I want to go back to Blue Train, and I want to know if we get off this call and you have the chance to hop into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show live, where are you
Hmm.
going?
Interesting. I've Count Basie is my big band role model, and I always wish I could hear him in real life. And I've watched so many videos, live videos of him on YouTube, and just experiencing that energy and that swing feel. To me, that's the heart of what I love about jazz. So to hear Count Basie, boy, that would get me going.
Right on. So, Sean, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, bandmates, everyone that knows you, but you're in control of the proverbial band. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I can be reserved at times, and then when I get on the bandstand, I try to uh, I wouldn't say tap into a different side of myself, and so it's fun to be able to express myself differently on the bandstand with my trombone, with my big band, interacting with audiences, and building a sense of community through all of that.
Right on. So, if anyone wants to pick up a copy, in the proper way that would benefit you the most of Don't Stop Now, or catch you live or any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
newlondonbigband.com. We'll have all the CDs for sale, and you can catch up on our calendar and all our dates and all of that.
Okay, cool. Sean, this has been great, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with the release.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Joe.
Yeah, you bet. Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.